Hello, in this video, I'll talk about how and why to use ACRO in Stata. The ACRO package is an interface that provides a set of wrapper functions that execute Python functions in the backend to help you produce safe outputs and meet your obligations. The transferring of data, queries, and disclosure results from Stata to Python or vice versa is all handled in memory via the package SFI toolkit. ACRO can be used to produce different types of outputs, such as tables and regression outputs. Now let's talk about why should you use ACRO. ACRO saves you time and effort by doing a real-time disclosure checks when you are creating the outputs. It also gives you an immediate feedback that can allow you to adjust the outputs to pass all the disclosure checks. ACRO also allows you to easily communicate with the output checkers by adding comments or exception requests to the outputs. ACRO has a minimal learning curve, and you can pick it easily. Most of the ACRO commands are similar to the Stata commands. If you know how to use Stata, then you know how to use ACRO. You just need to add the word ACRO to the beginning of the Stata command. The other commands for handling the ACRO session and the outputs, like adding, removing, or renaming outputs, are simple and self-explanatory. After you are done preparing the environment, now it's time to prepare the data for your research. You can pre-process the data the way you want. There is no restrictions on the process you can apply to the data to make it feasible for the analysis. For this presentation, we will use the nursery open source dataset from OpenML. Before using any of the ACRO functions, you need to create an ACRO session. You can do this using the command ACRO init. The TRE risk appetite is displayed in the pink color. Now let's start the research and create some outputs. If you would like to perform a cross-tabulation using Stata, you can use the command table with the row variables and column variables. The output of the command is a table showing the cross-tabulation of the row variable finance and the column variable parents. To do the same cross-tabulation and get the same table using ACRO, you just need to add the word ACRO to the Stata command, so it will be ACRO table finance parents. The output of this command in the pink color is a feedback from the SDC, which is a statistical disclosure control. You can see a summary which shows whether the output passed or failed the disclosure tests. In this case, the output passed the disclosure checks, hence it's a safe output and can be taken out of the TRE. The outcome table shows which cell in the table violates which rule, and the table in black is the actual cross-tabulation result, which is the same as the result using the Stata command. Here is another example of a more complex table. In this case, we use the statistic option to get the mean of the children. This command will produce the same result, but by using ACRO. You can see that in this case, the output failed the statistical disclosure checks, and a summary is given, which shows that 2 cells violate the threshold rule, 5 cells violate the B-ratio rule, and 5 cells violate the NK rule. The outcome data frame shows these cells that violate each rule, and in the black color is the actual resulting table. ACRO is not only used to produce tables, but can also be used in regression. Here is an example of using Stata to produce a regression with the command regress recommend children. Using ACRO in front of the command will produce the same result. The order and the format of the result might be different from the one produced by Stata, but the actual result is the same. This output passed the disclosure checks and is considered a safe output. After you are done and happy with the outputs, you should call the finalize function and pass the directory name and the format of the output, which could be either JSON or Excel. The default is JSON. By calling this function, you don't need to manually organize your results in a folder. as this function writes the outputs and summary of the disclosure checks to a folder that contains everything the output checkers need to make the decision. There are other functions that allow you to communicate with the output checkers by adding comments or a text description that provides some context to the output, or by sending an exception request if the output is disclosive but you think you have reasoning for that. There are other ACRO functions that can help you manage your outputs. For example, you can rename the outputs to a more descriptive name. You can also delete the outputs that are disclosive or you do not wish to include them in the research anymore. And finally, you can bring the outputs to the screen. For more information about ACRO, go to these links where you can find examples, documentation, and a wiki page.